One of the weirdest things to me is watching a business spend marketing dollars only to find out that they can't support the work that that marketing produces for them. Like now they have business, but they don't have the system in place to back up the marketing. So they're wasting money, they're wasting time on that marketing without any kind of system in place. I don't know why this keeps happening, but it keeps happening to me with the businesses that I'm trying to hire. And I think it's the weirdest thing in the world. So I really want to just talk about it and show you how you can build in Airtable one of the most simple CRM that pretty much anybody needs, whether it's a brand new startup or an existing company. Doesn't matter, you need to collect this data. So if that's of interest, let's get into it. Hey, my name is Gareth Pronovost. I'm the owner of Gap Consulting, where we help businesses get organized and automated so that they can spend more time working on building their business instead of getting stuck working inside of their business. So, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about high-level CRM functionality, what pretty much any CRM needs. Now, before I get into it, real quick backstory. I don't know why this keeps happening to me, but it happened just again last week, and it's driving me crazy. This local business owner came by, canvassed our neighborhood, gave us a business card, and he said, "Hey, I'm an arborist. I work on trees. And we've got a half-dead tree in our front yard that needs some help. It needs some TLC. And so, yeah, I called this guy. Called him, left him a message. Didn't hear back. He called me, and then called him again, and then he finally gets back with me and says, send him a text with the address and he'll come on by. Never hear back from him. I send him 2 more texts, never hear a thing. I don't understand why this happens. Like, he took the time to build business cards. He took the time to go around and canvass our neighborhood and probably others with marketing materials, and then he can't support the business. It makes no sense. And hey, I'm not picking on the guy. I'm just saying, like, what are you doing? Build the operation, build the system that will support you. And so really what you need, any business needs, is the ability to track customer data. And really, it's a high-level CRM. I don't care, as I said, I don't care if you're brand new or if you've been in business for decades, you need some place to store this info. So anyway, okay, rant over. Let's get into Airtable and just take a look at how we can build this. It's really simple. Let's jump into my screen where I'm starting a new basic CRM here. Okay, so couple of things. Obviously, we need a table of contacts. This is going to be people, right? These are either clients. If you're doing a lot of B2B, you might, that is business to business. So if you're dealing with serving other businesses, you might have these grouped in organization. Or if you're doing a lot of B2C, business to consumer, then this will almost undoubtedly be, personal data, right? So name and stuff like that. Let's imagine that we're doing something for the poor arborist who swung by and then never called me back. So he would probably need to track a first name. This is very, very common stuff. I really like breaking up first name and last name into 2 separate fields. And the reason for that is when you have first name broken up and then last name, you can, of course, derive the full name. But when you're sending an automated email and things like that, you've got the first name in its own field and it's easy to reference. So let's suppose then, that this, I was building this and I wanted to just put my own information in here just to make sure that everything was working. Now I'm also going to use a full name here at the beginning. And this is going to be a simple concatenate formula. So we're just going to string together first name and last name. Okay. Now, the important takeaway here, if you're new to Airtable especially, the important takeaway is every data point, every column that we're going to build, which is a field, every field, column, data point, I use the same 3 words interchangeably, every one that we build is going to be specific to this table, this tab right here. And so we don't want to include things that are not contact specific. So things that are contact specific, for example, might be the email of a person, right? The email of a person, the phone number of a person. This is where you're going to store all of the data that is specific to this individual. Okay. So we'll go ahead and imagine that you can collect all of the different data points that are unique to individuals. Name, salutation, pronoun preference. All these things are, different data points that you can collect, right, for a contact. Fair enough. All right, great. Once you have that, now what we need to do is also create another table, and we're going to call this interactions. This is something, again, you're going to find this in almost every CRM. We are tracking the set of data, which is interactions, against our contacts, meaning we are linking interactions to contacts. Now, turning this off, because each interaction will be with one contact and one contact only. So we turn off the multiple option here. Do not allow linking to multiple records here. And let's suppose that we were going to record contact made with me. So in this case, you would probably want to track the date of the contact, or of the interaction. And you may include to use a time field here, or you might not. It's totally up to you. I will use one for this example. And imagine, we would have a couple of different data points that are unique to interactions. This is going to be inbound/outbound. And because it's essentially like a Boolean that is either one or the other, we can make it either a checkbox or we can make it a single select field. I'm going to opt for single select. And we're going to give it two options here, inbound or outbound. Okay, so this is really saying, like, did we contact them or did they contact us, right? Also, we're tracking the date of that point of contact. So let's go ahead and throw some sample dates in here. And we will probably take a type of contact as well. So was this an email? Was this a phone call? You can put in, a few options here. It could be in person, Zoom meeting, whatever your situation may be. And then also you're probably going to want to track some sort of notes on this. Now, quick interjection here. You can set up automated processes using Zapier and Airtable to bring in a lot of this data automatically. So if you use some sort of phone service provider, you could actually, record your text messages, record your phone calls inside of your database. Similarly, you can do something with email, right? So that when you send a client an email, it automatically gets updated in your database. Totally possible. Just want to point out that you can do that. We're not going to do that here. Again, this is high level. This is basic structuring in terms of how you're going to help these individuals, right? So we've got contacts, we've got interactions. Now we have to now come back to this particular part here. So let's go ahead and fill out some information here. And again, we're just making some example data, and we're going to call this the interaction ID. And again, I use formulas in my primary fields a lot. Now, it's very important that every single primary field that you build is unique for your data set. That is, it needs to show you exactly what that interaction is in this case. And so just bringing in the contact name wouldn't be very descriptive because there would be multiple interactions with the same contact. So let's make it unique. We can string together multiple data points using a concatenate formula. We can include the contact information with a dash and perhaps the type of interaction with another dash. And then we can also use the date here. I'm going to wrap this in a date time format. And hopefully, if we didn't make any mistakes, that'll look pretty good. All right, great. You'll notice that this is using GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, so we would also want to adjust that back to our actual time zones here. But by and large, this is now a unique identifier for each record, so it's looking great. The reason we want it to be unique is because when we come back here, we're going to actually see all of those interactions as they're linked here. And if each one of these is not unique, then it's a little difficult. We don't know what we're looking at. Okay. So we've got the basics built, but something that we need and would be really helpful, especially for the arborist who never called me back. Clearly have a chip on my shoulder about this. For this person in particular, and for most of us, we need some sort of next step. What needs to happen next to make sure that this person is or this client is getting the service that they need from us. So let's imagine that the next step here is draw up a scope. Or maybe the next step here is sign a contract. Or the next step is start work. Whatever next steps there are. Maybe you have set steps, like a certain procedure. Maybe it's kind of a free flow each time. It really depends. But in any case, you need to really go into detail, some detail here about what happens next. And what we want is the ability to see this back on the contacts table. So let's go ahead and bring next steps in, and I'll show you how we're going to build some logic here that allows us to only bring in the next step. So let's go ahead and first and foremost, we're going to need to find out what is the max date between all of these different dates for interactions. So we're going to go ahead and bring in the max interaction date. And we use a roll-up field to do this. We look at the interactions connection between contacts and interactions. And then we are going to look at the date and only bring back the max. Now, if you're new to roll-up fields, that was pretty quick that we just went through that. So definitely spend some time understanding how the roll-up works. So now that we have that, we're going to bring in that time field as well. So we would expect to see only this max date because these two are obviously before or are not the biggest date. And that is exactly what we see. So now that we have this max interaction date, let's go ahead and bring this field back into our interactions table using a lookup. So now what we're doing is we're saying from interactions over to contacts, we want to look up that max date that we just calculated on the contacts level. And here it is. We're going to go ahead and turn on the time field. Make sure that's on. And there it is. So why did we do this? Well, we want to only access the next step in the case where this is the max date. So we're going to write a formula. So we're going to call this the actual next step. And in here, we are going to say if the date, that is the date right here that this interaction was or occurred on, if this date is equal to the max interaction date lookup, this one here, if those two dates are equal, then we want to know, so comma, then we want to know what that next step is. And otherwise, we don't want anything. So I'm going to go ahead and close that parenthesis, and we're going to save this and see what happens. So really all we're doing is we're saying, in the case where this date matches the max interaction date, in that case, then we're going to bring in the next step. And in all other cases, we don't bring back anything, right? And so as you would expect, we only have start work here. All right. Now that we have that built, we're going to bring that part back into our contacts. So this is our start work. Nope, sorry. That is our next step. And we already built a field for that. So actually let me delete this one. And I'll come in here to next steps. And now I'm going to use a lookup field. So this is our second lookup field. And we're going to look up that new actual next step that we just built. And we see it, start work. That's beautiful. So let's now take a look at how this works and why we went through all these steps. So the max interaction date, this is not necessary. We can hide this once we're done. Similarly, we can hide the logic here. We can hide the actual next step. All of these things don't need to be here visible for us, but they need to be working in the background. The whole point of this is so that when we add a new step in the future, right, and we record a new interaction with a new next step, then we need this to update automatically so that we can just very quickly and easily look at our contacts and say, what is the next thing we have to do? In the case of the arborist, call me back, tell me when you're going to come and check out my tree. So let's go ahead and jump into interactions here and test this out, make sure that this works. So let's create another interaction in the future, maybe on 9/27. We need to link it to Gareth. And the next step now will be finish project. And you'll see that once that's done, once Airtable takes a moment to think, the actual next step is being reflected here, and then of course that's going to be brought back in here. If we were to delete any of these, let me delete a few of these records. Now we're in the part where signed contract is the next step, and now that's being reflected back here. So now, rather than having to flip back between all these different tabs and figuring out where the project is, you have a nice clear vision of exactly where things are with each contact in your database and what you have to do next.
All right, as always, I hope you found that to be super helpful. If you did and you have some business questions that you'd like to run by us, definitely swing by our website. The link will be in the description, and we offer up times so that we can hop on a call with you. You can book directly there, and we can set something up that works for both of us. What we'll be discussing is building a solution for you that puts all of your data in one place and gives you a nice, concise dashboard so that you know what's happening in your business at all times. Additionally, we will work on building custom bespoke automation for you so that you can eliminate the time that you spend on repetitive tasks and save countless hours every week. So if that's of interest, definitely swing by our website and check out the different offers that we have there.